In the October 2022 development update from Visionary Realms, developers of the upcoming MMORPG Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, we added to our lorebook with the reveal of a place called Sevil Manor. The devs told us a tale of a devious noble family, a place with some dark secrets, and ultimately a failed attempt to burn down this house of horrors. But Sevil Manor isn't the only place with secrets, because there's more to the story than what was shown by VR. Like most of Pantheon's amazing lore, there are some deeper lore connections to be made here, but VR likes to let us, the fans, delve into those mysteries. You know, perception is a funny thing. The more information you have, the better it gets. And we've got tons of other lore that suggests this mystery goes much deeper. So, let's dig into the secrets of Saval. Thronefast is known for its nobility. The human capital has a strong history of leadership by its royal lineage, and to a lesser extent, the noble houses. The lore notes, of all the multitudes scattered across Terminus, no other group has been so defined, aided, and threatened by their leaders as the humans. Its current ruler, Queen Amenthiel, a true blood heir of Avendir, has shown traits of her ancestors' character and composure, and has set the course of the nation like a steady captain emerging from the clutches of a maelstrom. Humans on Terminus have looked to the noble families to help them find their footing on this planet since their arrival in 459 IH. And the Savals were amongst this group. They're described at one time as a noble family, one which stood as the envy of the court of lords. They lived a lavish, extravagant lifestyle. For a time, anyway. In high society, one does not remain nobility by sitting idly by and watching others gain and lose power through political machinations. Accordingly, noble families continually sought to increase their holdings. The lore tells us, due to the extremely limited amount of land available for family manors and estates, it is not uncommon for nobles to try and gain land holdings by illicit means. In the October developer stream, we were told the Saval family had oversight of the farmlands of the Forelin, which is the immediate area outside the Thronefast city gates. And there was one member of the Saval family that used this oversight to attempt to further increase the family's standing, Wolsifin Saval. Described as a devious Thronefastian noble, Wolsifin Saval outpaced them all. He quite literally constructed a castle in Avendir's Pass, called it an estate to avoid scrutiny, and then staffed it with a personal army and added a farm of indentured servants. He called this Luxon Estate, and had plans to tax and extort merchants using the main thoroughfare through Avendir's Pass. The lore dates this as being approximately 150 years ago, so that would mean this was in the year 837 IH. In the May 2022 developer update, we learned that the once honorable use of the Forelin became mired in the abuses of the Saval house, who prioritized profits over peasantry. The Savals were greedy, and were known for everything from skimming profits to forced labor on the manor. Eventually, the Savals' misdeeds became public knowledge, and their oversight of the Forelin was lost. The details of this we'll discuss in a moment, but the lore does say that the Savals' lands were eventually reclaimed, and the town of Avelia founded upon them just over 100 years ago, therefore occurring in approximately 887 IH. But this is only half the tale, for as we learned in the most recent update, there was a darker side to what went on in Sevil Manor. It was said the resplendent manor fell into a den of depravity. Beyond forced labor and illicit profiteering to, well, things difficult to imagine. Difficult indeed when we learned that it was commonplace for the staff of Sevil Manor to suddenly disappear. It was so extreme that when another servant had gone missing, the locals rose up and a madness took them, and they turned to slaughter. So what was it that led the Saval family to wade into the waters of evil? You see, on Terminus, humans are prone to failures of virtue over time. The lore notes that in recent history, the heritage of sacrifice and service has been exchanged for vice amongst much of the aristocracy. One such example is the worship of the deity Altheros, known as the Keeper of the Damned. The lore says, when souls depart the plane of mortality, it is said they are seated briefly before Nador, prior to being handed over to Corsaira or Altheros for safe harbor. Human worship of Altheros led to an Altheran cult of death, which started as a taboo fancy among certain members of the Thronefastian aristocracy. Was the Saval family one of those noble families that entertained this dark obsession? In the October stream, they were characterized as a twisted, elite family, with many dark secrets. It was said they had twisted ambitions, and were adept at extortion and manipulation to achieve those ambitions. Even amongst their own, the Saval family had a reputation for these sorts of things. Eventually, it appears this led to their ousting from the aristocracy for the treasonous crimes of bribery and blackmail, but perhaps it was for more insidious reasons as well. It is said the Savals never recovered from this public shame, which suggests their exile was for more than just aggressive politicking. It sounds like the Saval family would be attracted to the worship of a contemptuous god, perhaps even working in league with one to achieve their ends. There is, after all, a precedent for certain noble houses aligning themselves with one deity, such as House Devair. The lore tells us that Argos is the chief deity of Fortress Devair and the Devair noble family. When exploring the Devair family fortress, we saw symbols of Argos, known as the Bringer of Peace, as he is often depicted on shields and sails. We also found other religious artifacts, including the Book of the Availoth itself. Did we see such icons within the Sevil Manor? Let's continue. So where exactly is the manor? We know it's in the Greater Thronefast area, and as noted by VR here, it was near a ruined graveyard at one time, but has since been relocated to a larger area to accommodate the haunted house type of dungeon the manor has now become. VR held back on saying exactly where it is now, but given the hints we have so far, we know the town of Avelia is in the vicinity, so it shouldn't be that hard to find. Let's look at the manor itself, for it was the images from within and without that also revealed further insight into the sadistic nature of the Savals. One of the most notable things was the hedge maze shown in this image. Knowing what we've learned about the Saval family, it isn't hard to imagine this being used as some cruel mockery of sport with the servants of the manor, one which we, the players, may one day experience. In fact, the developers spoke of designing a hedge maze back in 2018 when discussing the design of Blackrose Keep. They noted, as to the exterior, we had originally planned on the floor plans a secret hedge maze garden with a narrative revealing surprise. Yet space within the keep's rear courtyard would not allow us to deliver both that and the clearances required for the dramatic action that needed to take place there, and so it was to become a much humbler central garden. Ideas never truly vanish, they merely lay in wait for their moment. No doubt we'll have something special in the place of that, perhaps something of a similar flavor executed elsewhere. And it appears they've found the hedge maze's new home in Sevil Manor. And it sounds like exploration of the hedge maze will reveal more to the Saval story. However, if you were thinking, well, Pantheon has climbing, I'll just climb over the walls to avoid the maze, VR has a message for you.
We've talked about that. At the moment, it's probably going to be something that we allow, but we utilize some interesting environmental tricks to make it more difficult than just climbing and walking above. I won't say more than that.
Okay.
So,
okay.
It'll be possible, but it's going to be risky. It's going to be a skill.
Okay.
I like it.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Looking at some of the other images within the manor, we see a portrait hanging in what may be the foyer of the manor, presumably of the Saval family. Wolsifin Saval, a woman and 4 children perhaps? What of the fate of the family? Well, the lore offers conflicting hints, in one breath noting their untimely passing during the revolt, but also that the principal members of this offending noble family were tried, banished, and in one case, executed. We could assume it was the notorious Wolsifin Saval that was executed. Yet the lore also says Saval was deposed from nobility and Luxon's state was abandoned. So maybe we should not be so quick to assume it was the patriarch of the family that was the driving force behind the malice of Sevil Manor. And there was this image, one that speaks volumes to the true end of one of the Savals. We see the skeleton of an adult, impaled through the chest with a sword in a stately bed. Was this the work of the peasantry in their uprising when a madness took them and they turned to slaughter? Room by room carried out their so-called justice until the walls were stained with the wounds of the dead? Perhaps the architect of the Saval evils did not live to see a trial or execution, and now serves in a more ethereal capacity. Recall the Altheran death cult mentioned earlier. The lore says, in deference to the judge of all, Altheros rarely makes a claim for souls, though a few over the centuries are rumored to have been specifically spoken for, and these the worst of all humanity. In what we've learned so far, this family would be a prime candidate for Altheros' choosing. And what is a haunted house without a dungeon? In the recent dev stream, VR mentioned players getting to the level's deepest reaches, and we see what appears to be a dungeon full of the implements of torture. An Iron Maiden, black cells, and a previous victim all serve to tell us that the Savals took torment as seriously as taxes. But what of the evidence of Altheros worship I mentioned before? Have you noticed one common theme amongst all the interior images of Sevil Manor? Chains. Chains adorn all things within the manor, from the bedroom windows, railings, gazebo roof, hallways, and even furniture. Chains, often with hooks at their end, hang everywhere. The Book of the Avaloth tells us of Altheros worshippers. His followers are notorious in reputation and appearance, wearing locks about their robes. Let me suggest to you that locks and chains are a natural pairing, and were we to find the corpses of the Saval family, we may find those locks attached to chains still on their long-dead bodies. Of course, this is just a theory, but then again, so is it that the Saval family no longer lives. The lore notes, some think Saval still lives in the manor, a site many have claimed, yet far too few can describe. How does this story end? One of the questions I was left with after the stream revealing Sevil Manor was, what saved the manor from burning to the ground? When the servants rose up and tried to ignite the house, a storm gathered above their heads, with the lightest of drops sizzling into the flames. Yet it was said the land had become so defiled that the rains refused to fall upon the ground. Witnesses reported waves of drops carrying themselves back up into the clouds, wailing in trails as they flew up into the sky. It may be easy to dismiss this as excited hyperbole, but maybe there is more going on here. Magic at work, or the human pantheon of deities intervening for some reason. We don't know at this point, but we do know that Sevil Manor is said to have seen ghoulish new residents who have moved in. And the Book of the Avaloth notes, some banshee have been drawn to sanctuaries dedicated to Altheros, though their ends are not well understood. What do you make of the mysteries presented here? Do you recall exploring locations like this in other MMOs where you know the backstory this well? Let me know in the comments. And if you don't like and subscribe this video, I'll tell Wolsef and Saval he tried to burn down his house. Until next time, cheers and happy haunting.